Okay, well, now I'm John Hudspeth, and now for this video I'm going to be playing patriotic tunes that relate to the 4th of July, and some used on Veterans Day, including a couple of World War II era songs that my uncle told me about. But I'll start with hymns for branches or the service, and I know, including the Navy hymn, "Oh, Eternal Father, strong to save." Old British Navy hymn. Even heard it was once played in the Sunday church service on the Titanic when it sunk that evening, which has failed to many. But talk about cry, well, hear our cry when we hear perils from the sea. That sort of was unfortunately a little easy foreshadowing then, but it's still important. And now we'll play the Marines hymn. Now, I'll play one more specific to the Army. When the caissons go rolling along, this reflects, of course, a little different era when the wagons went rolling along instead of the motor vehicles, but it still has the same symbolic meaning in a way. When the caissons go rolling along. Caissons, go rolling along, and now I'll play now the Battle Hymn of the Republic, the Julie War Howe tune, and it's Eyes Have Seen the Glory of the Coming of the Lord. More dramatic songs, and now in the next one I'm going to play the general playing of America the Beautiful. Catherine Lee Bates wrote the words, but several tunes were used, but this tune that we still know today that I'll be playing, I'll play probably 3 or even all 4 verses of America the Beautiful, based on Samuel Ward tune. It was written in the late 19th century. Some say that should have been the national anthem, but the timing of it and everything just varied, as even one of our retired music professors told us, the timing though just happened to just work and fell a different way with the Star Spangled Banner, which is the hymn in the early 30s. I'll talk more on that later when I play it. Okay. But now, get to some World War II era songs that were patriotic for those fighting, especially in the Pacific. And my late Uncle Hank Hudspeth, who died last year at the age of 99. In his young years, he was a radio operator on for the Navy in the Pacific during the battles and helped decode messages. And he was off Australia, and his helping code the messages helped us beat the Japanese at Midway with his assistance with picking up what they were up to and then getting the surprise on them, and also helped us even shoot down the planes of one of their Admiral Yakamoto. But during this time, he was near Australia, and you heard this Waltzing Matilda song. And I played it even for a resident here that moved to another home last year named Joyce Henderson, who came from there, remember this time. And anyway, as my uncle remembered, here's Waltzing Matilda to represent patriotism in that period, World War II. During this time, especially around 1943, Rodgers and Hammerstein were writing their musical of Oklahoma, the different songs. It wasn't made till a movie till the 50s, but it was an important time because these recordings were sent over to GIs for R&R relaxation and rest between combat or other assignments. My uncle told me about hearing these songs, and I'll play Everything's Going My Way and a little from the Surrey with a Fringe on Top. Spurring with a fringe on top. Okay. Now I'm going to play My Country 'Tis of Thee, as we get more patriotic things. Okay. Now we'll get to some others and I'll play our national anthem, Star Spangled Banner, by Francis Scott Key, because he was held temporarily and detained on a British ship when they were trying to negotiate the release of the American during the War of 1812, and this in 1814. But the British were trying to see if they could capture, because they burned Washington and had also tried to get Fort McHenry. So that'd be another big prize. And I visited that historical site in 2017 and saw where it all took place. But in the end, they didn't get the fort, and they finally released Francis Scott Key when they knew it wasn't going to make a difference now because they'd already lost that battle. So we retained Fort McHenry, and this was based on English drinking song with some changes. And one of our in-house professors, retired music professors, Paul Lehrman, has told us some about the stories behind it. But anyway, here's Star Spangled Banner, which finally became our national anthem about 1931. I'm going to play a couple of songs relating to George Cochran, the sing dance one, but he was played by James Cagney in the 942 movie, Yankee Doodle Dandy. And I'm going to play two of the songs. I'll first play the Grand Old Flag, at least, that George Cochran himself wrote, the one that James Cagney's playing or basing his life on. He's acting on the life of George Cochran, who was one of the early singers and dancers of the early 20th century. Here's a Grand Old Flag. That's the Grand Old Flag, and now I'll play the Yankee Doodle Dandy tune in this 942 movie, or at least parts of it, and then I'm going to mix it with the other Yankee Doodle song that was sung even in the late 1760s as the colonists were being taught the British as fights broke out between the British control and the colonists' desire for eventually straining old loyalties to Britain. And later the Boston Tea Party a few years later, and then the American Revolution. And so I'm going to mix and run a medley of these tunes. First playing some of the Cagney tune, then the old Yankee Doodle Dandy, the old whistly tune used by the colonists. play Irving Berlin's God Bless America. Ernie composed this in his head, and he got some ideas for it even way back at World War One. But the war ended, and his song didn't have that much popularity initially, or it wasn't as well known. But then in the late 30s, as World War II was potentially coming up, with Nazi Germany advancing, even the Japanese doing other things, Irving Berlin was aware of the tense times. Maybe it called for a blessing for America, in a sense. So he got his God Bless America tune together, and it became real popular about 1938 and afterward. It was eventually started at the beginning of World War II the next year and entered it in 1941. It was sung a lot during this period, as we were at war with Japan and Germany, by Kate Smith, was one of the most notable singers of that time. Like James Cagney, she was one of the big singers in Stars. So I'll play now God Bless America, a couple of verses to conclude this program.